movie Us by Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele's sophomore directorial performance, at least as far as I know. After the movie Get Out, he follows it up with one that was incredible in its own right. I won't say it was as dope as Get Out. I think Get Out is really, really dope. This one was just dope. And that's on a scale from dope to dope, dope, dope. Nah, let me stop. It's a really good movie, and it's definitely the type that I would have to rewatch, and I'm sure I'm going to get more from it when I do rewatch it. As most folks said, it's a movie that they saw like 2 or 3 times, and each time they got like different layers of it. I'm sure that would be my experience when I watch it again. Jordan Peele's movies are so dope, I feel, because I feel like he like carved out like his own niche, like his own lane. Like, he's so far. I can't wait till he comes his third movie, because like with the first, like the third will seal it for me with what I'm about to say, but the first 2 have me at a place where I think I can see a third movie without knowing who directed it and say, oh wait, that's a Jordan Peele movie. Just like the feel and the vibe of it. The closest director that I can say gets me to that point where I feel I can like pick his movies out of a blind lineup would be Quentin Tarantino. But Jordan Peele carved out this, like, it's classified as horror movies, right? But to me, they're like social commentary / suspenseful thriller horror movies. And I love the social commentary and the layers of it. I think I should name this episode of the podcast the Social Commentary Podcast. I think I've said that like 19 times now during this episode. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, then fast forward this. But the story is about how all those human beings have doppelgangers of ourselves that live in the lower. And we're in the upper. So there's like this like classism undertone, like upper class, lower class. And everything that we do, our doppelgangers, like our twins of ourselves, our quote unquote shadows, mimic what we do, but with like whatever they have at their disposal. Like if you go out to eat, all they had to eat were rabbits, raw rabbits. So if you're like on a date with someone at Mickey D's or at a fine steak, fucking Peter Luger's or something like that, Morton's, and eating, your doppelganger is doing the same thing, sitting down eating, but fucking raw rabbit. It's like some weird, wild shit like that. But anyway, they're pretty much mimicking you. And this little girl one day she's like in this carnival, like this Coney Island type shit, like a rundown kind of carnival. And, wanders off into this house of mirrors, and she's like isolated and alone, and winds up seeing herself in the mirror, but then realizes that it's not a reflection and it's like another one of her. Long story short, we find out that the little girl, the doppelganger, switched places with her upper class doppelganger. So the little girl that grew up in the upper was really the girl that belonged in the lower, and vice versa. I wanted to mention that specifically and expound a little bit on that, because it's what like stood out. One of the things that stood out most to me in the movie, and it's that Adelaide, which is the girl's name, if I'm not mistaken, and Red, which was her doppelganger's name, they switched. And Red, in essence, became quote-unquote normal and, able to function in the upper. They had a loving family, and she was married, had 2 kids. Adelaide wound up assimilating to her environment and pretty much becoming a monster. And you see that side of her when, she comes up to, like, reclaim shit, kind of. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that spoke to our ability as people to assimilate to our surroundings, and not just our ability to, but how much we're conditioned by our surroundings, and how much nature versus nurture, how much nature affects our development as people. And if you think about things that I've spoken about in the past on this podcast, with like something that stands out right now, first to mind is the podcast where I spoke about Nipsey Hussle passing, and how he grew up in an environment where all that was around him was gangs and gang violence, and he grew up in that, generational gang culture, and he was a product of his environment. And I think that this switch between Adelaide and Red depicts that. It depicts how malleable we are as humans, and how our nature obviously is there and is always bedrock, but our nurture, our environment, plays just as critical and monumental a role in our development. And I thought that was a really interesting takeaway, at least for me, in the movie. And it was an entertaining watch. I recommend it to you folks. I am definitely going to watch it again. And there's tons of videos and like theories online on what everything means, and some folks did pretty good breakdowns of like Easter eggs in the movie, and you guys can just like Google that, and I'm sure you find a whole bunch. But I definitely gotta check it out again.